Have you ever stopped to think, what if everything you've been taught about God is limiting who you really are? I'm not talking about religion, dogmas, or ready-made beliefs. I'm talking about something much deeper. What if you were, without knowing it, the very manifestation of a divine force, but spent your entire life feeling separate from it? The truth is that this feeling of disconnection, of being far from something greater, may not be your fault, but rather the result of an idea that has been repeated for centuries. Alan Watts, one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century, dared to challenge this mental model. He argued that God is not a distant being, observing everything from above. God is the entire universe, and you are a living part of that universe. There is no separation. There is no down here and up there. The divine is not outside. It is within. This vision isn't just beautiful, it's transformative. Because when you believe God is outside, you feel small, weak, dependent. You wait for blessings, you wait for signs, you wait for permission. But when you understand that the divine pulses within you, everything changes. You start creating instead of just obeying. You start manifesting instead of just waiting. How many times have you felt lost looking for answers outside, asking the universe for help? What if I told you that the answer was never out there, that what you're searching for so hard is already living inside, just waiting for you to remember? This is where Alan Watts's provocation comes in. Perhaps the greatest sin you ever committed was believing that you were not holy, that you needed to be saved, that you needed to be good enough to deserve God's love. But what if none of this is true? What if in reality, you are a living spark of creation itself, playing a game of forgetting, just to have the magical experience of waking up? What you'll discover now may surprise you, because when Alan Watts talked about God, he wasn't talking about a white-bearded man sitting in the sky. He was talking about energy, about consciousness, about the very essence of life experiencing itself through you, through me, through all of us. Have you ever experienced this? That feeling that there's something bigger, but you don't know exactly what? Maybe an intuition that tells you that life isn't just about paying bills, following rules, and waiting for the end? Maybe you've felt this when looking at the sky, listening to music, meditating in silence. It is into this space of perception that Alan Watts invites us to enter. He said that the error is not in seeking God. The error is in forgetting that you already are. And that changes everything. When you remember that you are part of the whole, you stop judging yourself, you stop comparing yourself, you stop putting yourself down. You understand that you are the universe itself in human form, here to experience, create, and dance with life. Stay with me until the end, because in the next few minutes you will delve into a new way of seeing spirituality, which can free your mind and expand your consciousness. And no, it's not just another pretty philosophical theory. It's a wake-up call to who you really are. You are not separate from God. You are His very expression. And maybe, just maybe, all you need to do now is stop limiting that strength within yourself. But wait, before we continue, we need to understand where this idea of separation came from and why it still dominates so many people today. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. For years, we've been taught to seek God out there, in temples, in heaven, somewhere far away. But what if this search has always been, in fact, a distancing from who you truly are? Alan Watts reminds us, the divine is not separate from you. It pulsates within, in the silence, in the now, in the observing consciousness. This idea may sound beautiful, but it also challenges everything we've learned. Because if God is within you, then you are more than you imagine. You are a creator, an active part of the universe. And that requires courage. Courage to leave behind fear, guilt, and the old habit of feeling small. Maybe you're feeling it now. A restlessness, a subtle reminder, something awakening. If this content touched you in any way, share it here in the comments. What do you think about this? Have you ever felt like there's something bigger inside you wanting to emerge, enjoy, and leave? You're like if this made sense to you. And if you want to continue on this journey of consciousness and awakening, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more to come. Now stay with me, because in the next section, we will understand why this idea of separation from the divine was so reinforced, and what changes when you break with it. Humanity's greatest prison may not be visible, nor made of iron or walls. It is built with ideas, repeated, reinforced, and accepted over the centuries, without question. And one of these ideas, Perhaps the most profound and limiting is how we view God. Since childhood, most of us have been conditioned to believe that God is something external, a distant being, separate from creation, watching from afar, judging our actions, waiting for us to be good enough to be accepted or rewarded. In many traditions, he is placed in heaven, on a throne, above all else, and we, down here, desperately trying to earn his mercy. This structure immediately creates a hierarchy, a supreme being up there, and flawed, small, and unforgiving beings down below. And while many people find solace in spiritual figures, the problem isn't believing in something greater, but rather into belief that we are separate from this. Alan Watts breaks with this paradigm. He invites us to look at things completely differently, not with rebellion, but with deep reflection. He argued that the traditional image of God as an other, a being separate from the world and from people, is a human creation, a reflection of our own social structures, kings, bosses, presidents. We project this model onto heaven, but the divine for Watts is not there, it is here. And more than that, it is in you, in your conscience, in your silence, in your ability to feel, perceive, create, and marvel. This kind of vision is nothing new to currents of Eastern mysticism, where the concept of separation between the self and the sacred simply doesn't exist. But in the West, we've been taught to fear the divine, and this has distanced us from something that has always been within us. And perhaps this is the greatest hidden truth of our existence. God is not outside of you. God is you, not the ego, not the passing personality, but the all-observing consciousness that is silent, eternal, and indivisible. Think of a river. Each drop of water is part of the whole, but also unique. You are a drop that carries the entire ocean. The problem is they forgot to tell you that. Or worse, they made a point of teaching you the opposite. Why did this happen? Watts said that the separation between man and God was a necessary theater, so that consciousness could play at losing itself, and then find itself again. But this separation also served power structures well. A distant God breeds fear, and fear breeds obedience. The idea of a God who punishes, observes, records, and judges your mistakes creates spiritual dependence. You stop looking within and start looking to someone who can give you permission to exist. That's why when you start looking within and feeling the divine within yourself, you become uncontrollable. You no longer need external approval to feel whole. You're no longer afraid of making mistakes because you understand that life is not a test but an experience. And what's more, you stop asking permission to be you. This shift in mindset is transformative. It's what Alan Watts called awakening. It's when the wave realizes it's not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean, in wave form. But as long as you believe that the divine is out there, your life will be a constant search for something you feel, but never find, because you're looking in the wrong place. The peace you want is not in a blessing that will come. It is in their cognition that everything already is, of what you already are. And here comes a crucial point. It is not enough to understand this intellectually. You can read 1,000 books, watch every video, repeat mantras, and still feel separated. Because this reconnection is not a concept, it's an experience. It's something you feel, not something you believe. And this feeling does not come from logic, but from presence. It arises when you silence the noise of your mind and allow yourself to simply be, without trying, without forcing, without wanting to appear spiritual, just being. That's where the divine emerges, not like a bolt from the blue, but like a silent warmth, a clarity, a lightness that arises without explanation. You may have felt this way at some point, maybe watching the sunset, listening to a song that got to you, looking into the eyes of someone you love, or simply staying silent, at peace with yourself. In those moments, you don't think, I'm close to God. You feel, I am part of it all. It's a profound recognition, and nothing, absolutely nothing, is more transformative than that. Therefore, instead of looking outside, the true path is to turn inside. It's not an escape from the world. It's a return home. And that is precisely what the world needs most now. People who remember their divine nature so that they can live with more truth, more courage, more compassion. Because someone who knows that he is God in expression does not need to dominate anyone. No need to compete, prove, destroy. This person lives in peace because he feels whole, Now, if you've come this far and something inside you seems to have remembered something old, something that's always been, there, write in the comments, "I'm on that journey too." And get ready, because what comes next will deepen this dive even further. For a long time, we have been conditioned to see ourselves as small, a grain of sand, one human being among billions, an insignificant speck floating in an infinite universe. But this view, though seemingly humble, carries a subtle poison. It casts us as something separate of the totality, as if the universe were out there, and we were here inside, as if life happened with us but not through of the people. Alan Watts broke this paradigm with a single sentence: "You are the universe experiencing itself." Stop for a moment and let that idea really sink in. You are the universe, not just a part of it, but a direct expression of it. You are not here by chance. You are the cosmic consciousness that decided to play at being you, with your name, your story, your fears, your dreams, your doubts. You are the way the whole chose to taste existence through your eyes. The voice that speaks now, the mind that listens, the heart that feels, all of this is part of the game. And this is exactly what Watts called divine play, because he believed that life is not a test nor a punishment, nor a ladder of suffering toward salvation. Life is a dance, a flow, an experiment in consciousness. According to him, the universe hides within itself. It divides, fragments into billions of forms so it can find itself again. It's like a game of hide and seek. Consciousness dresses itself in matter, pretends to forget, immerses itself in time and space, just to have the pleasure of remembering, of awakening, of returning to itself. And the most curious thing? You already know that. Not with the rational mind, but with something much older. Something that throbs in the center of your chest when you are silent. Something that appears when you stop trying to be someone and simply, and think about the most vivid moments of your life. Maybe dancing, maybe crying, maybe in ecstasy with nature. In those moments, you didn't feel separate. You weren't analyzing life. You were life. There was no me and no world. There was just the experience happening. You dissolved and became everything. This is the natural state of being. It is pure consciousness, without interference from the ego, without the need for control, without the weight of the past or the anxiety of the future. But why have we strayed so far from this? Because from an early age we learn to identify with form, with the body, with the name, with the social function. We have been taught to think of ourselves as isolated individuals, when in fact we are living channels of a cosmic intelligence far greater than we can comprehend. And when we forget this, we start living on the defensive. We create armor, masks, strategies to survive in a world that seems hostile. We feel threatened all the time because we believe we are alone, separated from the source. This is the root of insecurity, from the fear of death, from the fear of failure, from the fear of not being enough. But remembering that you are the universe experiencing itself dissolves all that. It gives you back the right perspective. You're not just the character, you're also the author. You are Notina's story, you and the story itself, told in real time by the flow of existence. And that changes everything. This awareness opens up a new field of freedom, because if you are the universe in human form, then everything in you is natural. Your emotions, your desires, your creativity, none of it is a mistake. There is no sin in being. There is no guilt in existing. This vision doesn't isolate you from others. On the contrary, it connects you. When you understand that it is the whole expressing itself in a unique way, you also understand that the others are like that too. Each person is a perspective of the same infinity. There is no me versus you. There is us, dancing in different ways. This realization changes your relationships. You stop judging, stop competing. He begins to see the beauty and difference, the poetry and chaos, the perfection hidden in what previously seemed flawed. And you know what's even more amazing? You start to trust, not blind trust, but heartfelt trust, because you realize you don't have to control everything. The universe is moving with and through you, and he knows what he's doing. You realize that you don't have to force it or rush it or prove it. Its existence is already valid. It is already divine. It doesn't need to be justified. Alan Watts said that life is like music. The purpose of music is not to reach an end, otherwise the best ones would be the shortest. The purpose of music is to play, to dance, flow, Life is like that too. You didn't come here to achieve an end goal. You came to live, to experience what it is like to be the universe in flesh and blood, to laugh, cry, create, fall, get up, love. It's all part of the fun. And when you understand that, the guilt goes away. Anxiety loses strength. The search ends, because you have already found it. And what you have found is not outside, nor is it something you need to earn. It's what you've always been. What changes is that now you remember. And you remember with your body, with your soul, with your own breath. Every step, every gesture, every choice is now made with presence. No longer like someone trying to get somewhere, but as someone who honors their own journey. This is the invitation. That's the memory. You are not a cosmic accident. You are consciousness itself playing at being human for a while. And when this perception becomes alive in you, everything changes, because you stop living to achieve something and start living as part of the whole. Comment here. That makes sense to me. And now we will continue with the next part of this journey of reconnecting with the divine. If you are the universe experiencing itself, why do you still live as if you are separate from everything? Why do you still doubt your own worth, your own ability, your own light? The answer may seem simple, but it carries an age-old weight. We limit the divine that lives within us every day, and we don't even realize we're doing it. We limit ourselves when we reduce ourselves to the opinions of others, when we let criticism define us, when we believe that we are only what we have, what we do, or what others see. We limit the divine when we feel ashamed of our essence, when we stifle our voice, when we are afraid to express who we really are. But this doesn't start now. This has been going on for a long time. From a very young age, we learned to shape ourselves to be accepted. We were told what was right, what was wrong, what God approved of and what He disapproved of. And within this set of rules and dogmas, our natural brilliance was being dimmed, hidden, and put to sleep. We begin to associate spirituality with sacrifice, suffering, punishment. We believe that to be good enough, we would need to deny ourselves, deny our desires, deny our feelings, deny what makes us unique. Alan Watts said that human beings are obsessed with trying to control life, when in reality, life can only be lived in freedom. But freedom demands one thing: self-confidence. And that's exactly where the system breaks us. Every time you think, I can't, I'm not capable, this isn't for me, you are creating an internal limit. It is narrowing the channel through which the divine can flow. It's like trying to contain the ocean in a cup. You are an infinite being, living inside an invisible cage called limited self-image. Have you ever stopped to consider how many decisions in your life were made based on fear and not on truth? How many times have you kept quiet about something you wanted to say, for fear of not being understood? How many times have you sabotaged yourself, hidden yourself, diminished yourself, even though you felt deep down that you were denying your own soul? These are the moments when the divine is blocked, not because it ceases to exist, but because you turn your back on it. You silence your own nature and enter a spiritual survival mode, as if He were hiding from what He came to be. And don't blame yourself for it. We've all been conditioned to act this way. We have been taught to trust what comes from outside more than what comes from within, to obey, to please, to repeat, instead of feeling, exploring, questioning. But consciousness is changing. There's a quiet wave sweeping the world, people waking up, questioning, sensing that there's something beyond the surface. And if you are here now, it is because something in you is also being called back home. The truth is that the divine does not limit itself by its own will. He limits himself by belief. Belief that you can't. Belief that you don't deserve it. Belief that you have to suffer to evolve. Belief that you are not worthy. Belief that one is separated from God. And these beliefs are like veils. Each one covers a piece of your light until you barely see yourself anymore. You look in the mirror and see only a body. It presents itself as a profession. It is defined by a history, and you forget the essential, that you are the very expression of life, alive, pulsating, divine. But what if you decided to take off those veils, one by one, kindly, with curiosity, with courage? What if you dared to believe that everything you were told about limitation was only part of the story, and not the whole truth? Because the truth, when it comes from within, has a different sound. She doesn't push you, she invites you. She doesn't accuse you, she welcomes you. It doesn't diminish you, It reminds you of who you are, and it is this process of remembering that transforms everything. It's at this point that you realize you don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to fit a mold. You don't need to ask permission to be whole. What you need is release. Release the internal ties. Release the judgments. Let go of the need for approval. Letting go of the idea that you have to become something when all you need is to allow yourself to be. Return to what already is. Watts said that the error of our culture is in trying to live like machines, ignoring the natural flow of life. But you are not a cog. You are a river, a field of living energy. And that field only expands when you stop trying to control everything and start trusting. Trust that your intuition knows the way. Trust that your body holds wisdom. Trust that your inner voice is wiser than 1,000 external pieces of advice. And make no mistake, this confidence is not arrogance. It's humility. Humility to recognize that the divine is within you. Humility to accept your own greatness. Because the ego wants to hide, but the soul wants to express itself. When you start giving space to this expression, something changes. You start to move differently in the world, not out of obligation, but out of expansion. You listen to yourself more, judge yourself less, there is less comparison, and finally you begin to feel at home within yourself. And that's when the divine flows again, not as a sudden miracle, but as a constant reminder, like a still small voice that says, "You were never separated. You were just distracted." Comment here. That makes sense to me. And we continue diving even deeper. Knowing that the divine lives within you is liberating, but putting it into practice is transformative. This is where many get lost. They know there is something greater. They feel there is a power within them, but they don't know how to access it in their daily lives. They end up returning to old patterns, repeating automatic thoughts, drowned out by routine distractions and external demands. But reactivate this divine consciousness. It is not a distant ritual, nor an unattainable achievement. It does not require isolation. It does not require perfection. What she asks for is presence. And presence is something you can cultivate right now, right where you are, with the life you have. Alan Watts said that the secret is not in seeking enlightenment as an end, but in realizing that enlightenment is already in the process of consciously living each moment. In other words, the path is not a place you arrive at, it's the way you walk. And this journey begins with something very simple. Notice. Yes, the simple practice of observing what happens within you, without judgment, is already a portal. Observe your thoughts, observe your emotions, observe your body, your breathing, your automatic reactions, but observe with curiosity, not with demand. You're not there to correct, you're there to recognize, because consciousness can only transform what it sees. When you begin to observe yourself kindly, you begin to notice subtle patterns, how you react to fear, how to seek approval, how you close yourself off when you feel rejected, how you abandon yourself to fit in, and all of this stops being automatic and starts to become choice. This is the first step to reconnection, getting off autopilot. The second step is to create internal spaces of silence. In the hustle and bustle of the modern world, we are always busy, always distracted, always rushing. But the divine does not speak loudly. It whispers. And to listen, you have to slow down. It can be a moment in your day when you simply sit, close your eyes, and breathe. It doesn't have to be a complex meditation. It could be a minute, 2, 3. The important thing is not the technique, it's the intention. It's saying with your body, "I'm here, I'm available, I want to hear myself." And in those moments, something begins to emerge, not as an external voice, but as an intuition, a clarity that comes effortlessly, a peace that does not depend on explanation. It's like life can finally catch up with you, as if the wisdom that was always there had space to manifest itself again. The third step is the most challenging, but also the most liberating act from this new awareness, because there is no point in feeling the divine in silence and then ignoring it in your choices. You will realize that as you become more aware, life will start to test you. Situations where you can act as before, or you can choose a new path. Situations where the ego screams, but the soul whispers. And that's where the practice happens. It's the moment you take a deep breath before reacting. It's when you choose to tell the truth, even if it hurts. It's when you embrace yourself instead of punishing yourself. It's when you allow yourself to feel pleasure without guilt. It's when you say no with love and yes with presence. These are the little miracles of everyday life. It's the choices that reprogram your mind, your body, and your energy. These are the moments when the divine in you, it stops being an idea and becomes a real experience. And little by little, your vibration begins to change. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're remembering who you are. You begin to see beauty where you once saw boredom. You begin to feel gratitude where you once felt a lack of it. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw walls. You begin to trust where you once doubted. And this transformation, even if silent, has a huge impact. Because when you change on the inside, everything changes on the outside. You start to attract people who vibrate at the same frequency. Start making decisions more aligned with your truth. You begin to feel a new lightness even on difficult days. Start living with more purpose, more clarity, more truth. This doesn't mean that everything will be perfect. Life goes on with its ups and downs. But now you are no longer living as someone who fights against the world. You live as if you flow with life, like someone who knows they are part of something bigger, and that something bigger, I will be held if. Watts said that the problem with modern human beings is that they try to live as if they were isolated machines. But you are not a cog. You are an energy field connected to the whole. And every time you reconnect with that source, you heal. And as you heal yourself, you also heal the world around you, because you begin to radiate presence, awareness, compassion. And you don't have to change everything at once. Start with what you can afford, with the next thought, with the next breath, with the next choice. You don't have to get there. You just need to come back to yourself. This daily practice of returning is what strengthens your awareness. And the more present you are, the more the divine acts through you. But life begins to flow synchronically. More doors open, more lightness arrives. Because now you're not trying to control everything anymore. You are co-creating with the whole. And this state has no name, but it has a powerful effect. It brings you home, even if it's just from the inside. Comment here, I'm coming back to myself, and we will continue to deepen this journey. So far we've delved into ideas that may seem simple, but carry immense weight. Deconstructing the traditional view of God, realizing that you are the universe experiencing itself, recognizing how we limit the divine within ourselves, and practical steps to reactivate that awareness. But what does all this really mean for your life? What happens when you stop seeing God as a distant being and start recognizing this creative and sacred force pulsing within you? This transformation is not just spiritual, it is existential. It changes the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, and how you interact with everything around you. When consciousness awakens to this truth, it brings a silent revolution. A revolution that begins within but reverberates outward, impacting your relationships, your work, your choices, your happiness. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to live without the burden of separation, without feeling like you need to prove something, earn something, achieve something to be worthy. Imagine simply being you, whole, complete, divine in your essence, and letting that truth guide every step. This is what Alan Watts invites us to experience. And this experience is not reserved for a few enlightened or mystical people. It is available to you right now, at this very moment. But for this to really happen, it takes courage. Courage to look within and question everything you have believed until now. Courage to let go of old beliefs and embrace a new way of being. Courage to allow yourself to feel, to allow yourself to make mistakes, to allow yourself to grow. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of this journey. Awakening is not about becoming perfect. To awaken is to become real. It's about freeing yourself from masks and limitations to live authentically. It is recognizing that the divine in you does not need to be hidden or controlled. He wants to express himself, vibrate, transform. And if you've made it this far, maybe something has awakened inside you. Maybe an old memory, a truth you already carried. It just needed to be touched again. That's why these conversation spaces are so important, because sometimes all we need is a voice to say, you are not alone on this journey. If this video spoke to you in any way, leave your comment here with the phrase, that message was for me. It's a way for us to recognize each other, and also to keep this field open for those who are just arriving. If you felt this content brought you clarity, acceptance, or even a little inner push, click the like button. This will help this message reach more people who, like you, are also on this journey back to themselves. And if you want to continue receiving content like this, with philosophy, spirituality, and real-life practice, subscribe to the channel. Here we don't talk on transformation, we live it. There's a video here that complements all of this and will take you even deeper into this topic. Click and continue with me there.